What are the benefits of supporting Israel? Does an ally continue to spy on you? They do the USS Liberty bombing, the Lavon affair, lots of like treacherous acts, false flags designed to get us into wars. Why is this a good ally that we should send more money per capita than any country in the world? So what do you think justifies giving Israel more money, especially per capita, than any country on this earth?
Why do you think? I don't know. Why do you think? What do you think?
That's a good answer. I don't know is a good answer
right now.
All right, so you're the first person today to come up for the end foreign aid to Israel. What are your thoughts on foreign aid to Israel, and why are those your thoughts?
So,
hold the mic probably closer.
Sorry. So, I think that we should give foreign aid to Israel, albeit probably not nearly as much as we currently give. I think that I think that Israel is at this point Israel is a fairly developed nation. They've got a lot of resources. Their military is incredibly strong, especially for the size of Israel. But at the same time, I think that if we're given a ton of money to Ukraine, right, I think that we should be given money to Israel. I think if we're going to do one, then we should do the other. It's difficult because I'm invested in the war, because it is a war now, after the invasion.
What do you mean invested? How?
Not like I guess not like personally invested, but just like I'm very interested in it. I think that the conflict is super nuanced, and so I think that I support Israel. However, it's definitely not just I am fully aware that it's not just one side is in the right, the other side is completely in the wrong. It's definitely more nuanced than that.
Sure. So obviously we've been giving money to Ukraine, especially since they got invaded by Russia. Israel's not currently being invaded. In fact, arguably they're invading. They're occupying the territory of other peoples, as recognized by the international community. So we've been supporting them even before 10/7. We've been supporting them to basically the tune of about $3.84 billion a year. Sometimes we'll even do supplemental things on top of that to replenish Iron Dome and things like that. So why do you think a first world country, effectively, that basically gives universal health care to its people, and we can't even do that here in the United States? We have homeless people, we have crime, we have all these problems, we have very giant budget deficits. And not to mention all the blowback we get for supporting Israel, why do you think we should continue that support, which is higher than any country on earth, especially on a per capita basis?
I didn't realize that it was that much.
That's a lot.
that is definitely a lot more than I thought we were giving them.
How much did you think we were giving them?
Like probably $500 million a year. That's
close to 4.
Yeah, so significantly.
And they're trying to do like a $15 billion package for them now.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't support that much. I think that because the U.S. and Israel are allies, and we are allies, and I think that supporting our allies financially, or really, I think supporting our allies financially is a good thing to do, because the U.S. has a lot of money. Now, we are in a ton of debt as well, but we spend a lot of money. And so I think that it's taking some of that money and giving it out to our allies in our other countries is not necessarily, I think that it's a good thing to do. I don't think the amount that we're spending is, I think that's more than we should be, but I think that giving them a bit of money is a good show of faith, a good gesture in order to continue our assured alliance that we have with them.
I mean, doesn't it go the other way as well? If we're Israel's ally and we're their biggest ally, why don't they support us financially? Especially if we have bigger budget deficits that we're running, we have more debt to GDP. It seems it stands well to reason that they would maybe support us, given that we've supported them for so many years. And when it goes to this idea of being an ally, I mean, does an ally continue to spy on you? Like it was reported in Politico that they had these Stingray devices outside of Trump's White House, or when they, for example, sell our military secrets to the Chinese so they can develop things like the J-10 fighter jet. Do they, for example, attack U.S. Navy vessels and kill multiple American sailors like they did during the USS Liberty incident in 1967? Is that something that an ally does, and is that an ally that we should continue supporting? And not to mention that when we get attacked on days like 9/11, you had Osama bin Laden say that the reason for attacks like 9/11 is because of at least one of the cited reasons is our support for Israel. So is that worth dead Americans?
Sorry, let me gather my thoughts here for a moment. So, fair enough. I definitely see where you're coming from, and I definitely agree with a lot of that now that I think about it. I think that first, the comment about the Navy attack in, what was it, 1967, you said? I don't take that into a huge amount of consideration. I didn't know about that, but even now when I do know about that, I don't take that into a huge amount of consideration simply because it happened so long ago. The U.S. and Germany were at war for a very, very long time during the 1930s.
But this wasn't when we were at war, though. This is when we were supposedly on good terms and supposed to be fine. They claim it was an accident, but you ask the survivors of the attack today, and they still maintain that that was an intentional attack, and that both governments basically teamed up to create a cover-up of that whole situation, and they basically threw them all under the bus, our own American servicemen.
Okay, and I don't know nearly enough about the incident to really be able to say either way, but because it happened in 1967 and it happened so long ago, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, and maybe that's wrong, but that's kind of how I feel about that specific incident. About all the other stuff that you mentioned, though, I think it's hard because, with the amount of conflicts happening in the international world, right? Russia, Ukraine, Israel-Palestine, and now potentially, I wouldn't put it past China to start moving into Taiwan, right, at this point. So I think that if we are to have a global conflict, a World War III essentially, I think that Israel is probably going to be one of our biggest, not one of our biggest allies, but they're going to be a very important ally, especially.
Is there an example of a conflict in recent memory where you feel like Israel has been a super important ally in that fight, militarily, in an actual fight?
Not specifically, not in recent years, but I think that...
So not Iraq, not Afghanistan.
No. But what I do believe is that if there is a global conflict, Israel is going to be a very important ally in the Middle East. Really.
And what's the precedent for that?
There isn't, but my reasoning, and maybe my reasoning is flawed, but my reasoning is that if it is a if it is a conflict on a global scale, I don't think that Israel will be able to stay out of it. I think that Israel is going to be forced into it, especially because of their location.
Well, just military power-wise, do you think Israel would be a better ally, or would basically the entire Arab world, like let's say countries like Iran or Turkey, Egypt, like would these not be stronger and better allies, especially put together if we extended like the goodwill of maybe not supporting Israel so much, like against all of their interests?
That's a great question. I think that
because strategically, certainly a lot of these countries are way more important than Israel is. I mean, Israel, like, if a real estate, they often say if a real estate developer sold you that land, you'd sue them for it. Whereas, you look at, a place like Turkey, I mean, that they've got the Bosphorus Strait, that controls access to the Black Sea. That's, access to Russia and like all that's like, there's a lot of importance for Turkey. It's the gateway to Europe, like that land cross. There's a lot of importance there. Israel, not so much.
So I think that currently Israel has a lot of military power. They are I think they might be the only Middle Eastern country with access to nuclear weapons.
Well, I mean, we're not counting Pakistan. I guess is technically outside of that region, but Pakistan has nuclear weapons.
Okay, do they?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, then Israel and Pakistan, right? So they're one of the only. And now, hopefully,
well, they don't confirm that, by the way.
Okay, but still. Israel has an incredibly strong military, especially for their size. And we've seen this time and time again whenever they get into conflicts that end up in invasion. Israel nearly always ends up being the aggressors in the end. But
even in the beginning, like the 67 war is actually an example where they literally started that war. They even say it themselves as it was a preemptive war.
Yes.
That they engaged in.
Yes, and that is true. But my point, my bottom line, the point is that Israel has a strong military, and if we were to stop giving aid to Israel today, right, if we were to completely cut all ties with them, what is the likelihood that we would then be able to ally ourselves with Iran and Turkey, right? And I think some of these countries are more likely to ally themselves with us than others. But
well, I mean, Turkey's already a NATO member, so they're already allied with us.
And so, yeah, Turkey, I think, would definitely be a lot easier than, say, Iran. But I think that one of the biggest things that we have with Israel is simply our not common, but more similar beliefs.
Like what are you thinking of in particular?
Sorry, let me think of how to put this. So both Israel and the U.S. So I think no, fair enough. You got me there. I'm gonna be completely honest. I do believe.
I mean, maybe what LGBTQ rights is that is that
I mean,
is that
yeah,
what
that
we
is-
want to
I guess
hang
that is
everything
one
up on? Is
well, no, but I do. They do definitely have more similar beliefs than, say, the U.S. and Egypt or Iran or whatever on that. But I do believe that from prior knowledge, I do believe that the U.S. and Israel have fairly similar political beliefs. However, now that you mentioned that, I do think I'm going to do a little bit more research into that, do a little bit more digging to see, because now that I think about it, that is just like it's not actually backed by my research. So I do
for
need to
example,
look into
when the
that.
National Security Minister Ben-Gvir says that spitting on Christians is an ancient Jewish tradition, is that something that makes you feel like they're very that's an ally, like that's someone that we should support?
So, I mean, obviously no. However, Jerusalem especially is home to people of various religions, and
So is the Palestinian territories. There's Palestinian Christians. They have churches both in Gaza, which unfortunately one of the Gaza churches got bombed by Israel, so they're bombing churches. But also
they're bombing all of Gaza. So
yeah, and also the West Bank has Palestinian Christians and churches, etc. So obviously under the control of the Ottomans before Israel and before the British Mandate of Palestine, I mean, they had Jerusalem still existed. All various religions were there. In fact, they had a higher concentration of Christians under the Ottomans than they do currently in the state of Israel.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that what I've kind of said already is about all that I can, the insight I can really, all of my own insight that I can really give on.
Did this conversation do anything?
No, it definitely did. I'm still not 100% on the we need to stop giving aid, but I do definitely, it's made me realize that I have a lot more research to do, a lot more digging in to do, and so it's started to sway my view a bit. So
awesome.
Thank you for
thank you for stopping
this.
by. Awesome.
It was awesome.
Cool. All right, so you saw the sign, basically about ending foreign aid to Israel. You said you're pro sending aid to Israel. Why is that? Yeah, why is that?
I'm first of all, I'd say I'm pro just sending aid in general to other countries. Like America sends, there's some, I don't know who they send. I'm sure they send money to every country basically, because they send money to the UN and whatnot. But so I wouldn't say I would say they are pro. You should just send aid to any country, but especially Israel, because first of all they're our ally. But second of all, because I think what they're doing should be supported by. It's in America's interest to get rid of Hamas and the.
Why is that in America's interest?
I don't know. Shouldn't more. Getting rid of supporting Israel as a power in the Middle East.
No, but for Hamas specifically, what's the America's interest in getting rid of Hamas?
Because Hamas doesn't think Israel should exist.
But why is Israel's existence or so it's because of its relation to Israel. It's not because they pose any threat to Americans in the homeland. It's not because they attack America or anything.
I don't
like that.
I don't think they have attacked America specifically. I don't know.
So okay, if you're saying it's in America's interest because they don't want Israel to exist, you think they have a realistic capability to achieve that compared to Israel and its military might?
I don't think they have an unrealistic capability.
How so? What's an example of their realistic capability to just get rid of Israel by themselves?
Well, even if they wait, say again. Don't they they had to like install like the whole Iron Dome thing.
Yeah, so
to
that
stop.
basically takes care of the rocket situation for the most part.
But that doesn't. But just they're still sending like rocket barrages.
How many people die from those rockets?
I don't know.
It's like barely any people over even like a decade period. It's really not like it doesn't really make much of a dent. Like most of them get intercepted, especially the more dangerous ones, and then they're still developing technology. They're going to go to like a laser system soon. So I mean, it really doesn't do much.
But does that matter? If it,
I think it matters. Yeah, like the scale of like damage and our investment in the region. So I mean, do you understand that we send more aid to Israel, just even in total, but like per capita, especially more than any other country on earth?
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
But to like, I don't think it like if America had, if there was like a group of like Canadians up on our northern border, and we installed Iron Dome in America to stop them from sending rockets into America, I don't think that we could say just because not a lot of people die from that they aren't a threat.
Sure, but are we like occupying them? Are we like even according to internet, like basically every country in the world recognizes that we're occupying them, because that's what Israel's currently doing to the Palestinians. They're like illegally occupying them. And not to mention like what we're not doing to Canada, we're not putting them under blockade where they have no ability to leave. We're not putting a giant fence around them saying you can't leave this area into any other country. We're not saying you're not allowed to have an airport, and we're not saying you're not allowed to go via sea. So that's what's happening to Gaza. They have a blockade where they can't leave by sea, air, or land.
Well, no, aren't they saying that other like Arab countries could take them in?
So you're saying to ethnically cleanse the area, they're saying you can leave and never come back?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay.
That's not what I was not saying ethnically cleanse.
That's what it means, is if you send them out to another country and they're never allowed to return, that's an ethnic cleansing.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying Israel Israel's not ethnically cleansing anyone.
So what do you think the Nakba was in 48?
I don't know what that is.
So obviously that entire region was Palestine, and the Palestinian people lived there, and then
in Gaza.
No, in the entirety of Israel, like Palestinian. That's
Israel.
why there's like hundreds of thousands of refugees currently in Gaza, multi-generational, because they were basically expelled from their communities and forced into that area by Israel. That's known as the Nakba.
That's the Nakba. Okay.
Yeah.
That was in 1948.
Yeah, that's when Israel was established.
So, what you're saying? So you're saying that Israel was established, and in 1948, they kicked out all the Palestinians.
Not all of them. There are some that stayed behind and they made into citizens of Israel. Of course, they can't. They in their view, they also just can't make all Palestinians or Muslims citizens of Israel, because then it wouldn't be a Jewish state, especially if they wanted to maintain what they view as equal rights. So they have, I think they have about 1.6 million Arab citizens of Israel, but the rest of them were expelled during the Nakba into other regions, other countries, and including Gaza and the West Bank as well.
So they were expelled in 1940. Well, why would they expel this?
Is this new information? Is this something you haven't heard before?
No, I'm just confused. Why would that? Why would some explode and some not? And why would that be? Because I'm confused. If they're cleansing out the area, first of all, why wouldn't they just like destroy the area?
Sure. So
and then second of all, if they were cleansing the area in 1948, why did they expel some but not the rest? I just don't understand.
That's the point you made before. So basically, policies were not uniform throughout, like different groups. So you had different groups. You had the Haganah, who was like the main military and militia group of Israel. You also had these more like radical terrorist groups known as the Irgun and the Lehi. So those groups oftentimes would go out and they would carry out massacres like we saw at Deir Yassin, which is
these organizations are with
Israel.
Okay.
Yeah, so Israel had like terrorist organizations, even recognized by their own government as terrorist organizations subsequently. But the international community certainly. I mean, they carried out attacks against the British as well, like the King David Hotel bombing, the SS Patria bombing, which killed hundreds of people. They did a lot of these things, assassinations on even the UN, the first, I think it was the first UN negotiator who wanted to establish the lines and everything. That guy actually saved like hundreds of Danish Jews during the Holocaust, but they assassinated him because they viewed him as like in favor of the Arabs too much or something like that. So a lot of these things were happening around the time as well. But those groups would go into certain areas like Deir Yassin. Sometimes it would happen in Tantura and others, and they would kill people. That would send, people around in other villages would hear about those massacres and they would flee so they wouldn't be massacred themselves. And then some other groups, they would have better, not perfect, but they would have better experiences with the Israelis when they came in and they stayed behind. But the idea was that they would have this right to return, which is recognized by the international community, this right to return, and they haven't been granted that for 75 years.
Okay. But so 75 years, that's 1948.
Yeah.
What? So you would say that the Israel state should be turned back into a Palestinian.
Oh, I'm not saying that at all. I mean, I'm trying to give you historical context. Like, listen, America obviously used to be native land. We took it from the natives, etc. However you want to justify that. I'd say we did, like, our current relation with the natives is a lot different than Israel and the Palestinians. We don't have to get into all that. I'm just talking about, like, foreign aid. I don't think it's in America's interest to support Israel the way we do. For example, when Osama bin Laden carried out the 9/11 attacks, he stated as one of the reasons our support for Israel as the reason for that. So I don't think it's worth dead Americans to receive terrorist attacks because of our support of Israel. So I don't think it's worth it. I don't think we get much benefit.
Well, I think that consideration does have to do with whether we should, because somebody doesn't like what you're doing doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. Like, if this guy's a terrorist,
I'm not saying even taking right or wrong out of it. If there is a consequence that's associated with an action that we take,
mm-hmm.
and we know it's a realistic consequence, I say it's not worth it. Because what's the real upside? Like, is the upside outweighing the downside in that?
I think. I mean, I don't want to.
So what's the upside in your opinion? And give us giving billions to Israel.
I don't know the whole geopolitics of it, but I'm sure having like a democratic power in the Middle East is more.
Why do we care about democracy in the Middle East?
And also, they would build up, I don't know, more, make it like the trade center of the middle. I don't know, make it the trade center of the Middle East or something.
I mean, we have bigger trading partners than Israel in that region. But why does democracy matter to you in the Middle East? Like, why do we care if a country's a democracy or not? We don't care if Saudi Arabia is a democracy and we do business
No,
with
I
them.
don't think that. Like, I don't have a particular issue whether it's a democracy or not. I just think that the other states, including like Hamas, they don't like America and its principles in general.
Well, do you think that's mostly because do you think that's mostly because that we back and support Israel?
No, I don't. They don't like Americans' principles.
Their main principle, Hamas's main principle, has to do with Israel. Like, they don't.
No.
What do you mean no?
Okay.
How many attacks has Hamas carried out against America?
Well, that's just because if they carried out attack against America, America itself would destroy Hamas then, because
Well, first of all, why couldn't Israel do that? First of all, and secondly, isn't that their dream? Like, if they go die and they go, like, they believe in their version of Islam, they go to heaven, 72 virgins and all that. Like, why would they care if America? That's them going to heaven faster.
I would say, wait, you asked two things. Why don't they just attack America to martyr themselves, and then
Yeah, what do they care? They're
why
going
does
to heaven,
Israel just
72
destroy them?
virgins.
Well, I think Israel's in the process right now of trying to take out Hamas, right?
So why do you think Israel, especially like the Netanyahu government, talked about? So Netanyahu is quoted as saying you have to bolster up Hamas, and that they're an asset. Like they were viewed as an asset. They sent the chief of Mossad over to Qatar to say to keep funding Hamas. Why do you think Netanyahu's government in Israel supported Hamas financially?
I don't know. Why do you think that?
I think it's as a counterweight to the PLO, the Palestinian Authority over in the West Bank. They wanted to divide the Palestinian population and basically create the circumstances by which there wouldn't be a two-state solution. Because Netanyahu's government is not interested in a two-state solution, and by having the boogeyman of Hamas, it makes it much harder for anyone to support a two-state solution, because you have this boogeyman who's like, oh, we're going to destroy the state of Israel. Donald Trump, by the way, said this when he went over. He was like, I always thought it was the Palestinians that were supposed to be the ones that didn't want the two-state solution. But he went over there and he found the exact opposite. This is in recordings of Donald Trump, by the way. Trump says it was actually Netanyahu who didn't want peace. He doesn't want peace. But, Abbas, he found like almost like a father figure, in that he thought they could make a deal, but not with Netanyahu. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that the so it's a lot of information at once.
Sure.
I'm trying to wrap my thoughts. Also, which camera am I supposed to look at?
I'm not looking at any camera.
Oh, okay.
We're just talking. Yeah.
I don't think that so Israel. I think they'd be more. I don't think it's. When you say two-state solution, where are these states at? Or do we not know? Is that the point?
No, so the idea would be a state for the Israelis, the Jewish
Right.
people, which they already have, and then the other state would be for the Palestinian people who are currently under occupation by Israel.
In Gaza.
And
is what you're talking
Gaza and the West Bank, yeah.
about? Okay. Well, when haven't they tried giving land to because they did once occupy Gaza and the West Bank.
Yeah, so in 67, when they did their preemptive war against Egypt and
the
then
6 Day
Syria.
War,
What's that?
like the 6 Day War.
Yeah, the 67 war. That's they took over all that land. They took over, they occupied it like fully, which was the West Bank, Gaza, and even the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. And then of course they had to basically they don't want to it's complicated, but basically Egypt got a lot of that land back in the Sinai, and then they and then Gaza and the West, like this was basically part of like a peace deal that came about where they had to give a lot of that back, but and then it gets complicated with like Oslo Accords, because they're not like totally deoccupied from the West Bank. They're actively occupying it with settlements and things like that. So it was a temporary like takeover and occupation of that area under their control, but yeah, they had to give it back.
No, but in 48.
No, that wasn't in 48.
No, but in 48, who controlled the area? And
well, those areas were controlled, like they were
when Israel was established.
Yeah, so when Israel was established, you had the British Mandate of Palestine, then war broke out, and Israel took a lot of these territories, and then the other territories were either like I believe, part of like Transjordan or Egypt at the time. I think I'm not like totally clear on that, but they're basically like the Palestinian territories. They weren't in the control of Egypt of Israel at the time.
Right, but what I'm saying is Israel's given up like ceded land.
Not
So-
exactly, no. So there was they lost land because Egypt even like took some of it back because they had the war of attrition, which then turned into the Yom Kippur War. They had Operation Badr, I think it was, where they took back some of this. They crossed the Suez, went into the Sinai, and took a lot of that back. And this was part of the negotiations where they otherwise like they'd just be at war like constantly. So it was a very temporary takeover and occupation, and it wasn't sustainable. Like they couldn't rule over all those people sustainably in Gaza and everything like that. It made more. And they even had settlements in the region for a long time, and then they took them out in 2006, 2007. Or was it 2005? It was around that time they pulled them all out because it just wasn't safe for the Israelis to be there in settlements in Gaza. They still do the settlements in the West Bank.
Yeah, so they had people living in Gaza. Like there was Israeli citizens.
Very
living there.
few, very few.
I mean,
they're expanding.
Israel-
They're currently expanding in the West Bank against international law, and there's more people moving there all the time. I mean, just a few years ago, they might have been at like 100,000. Now they're at like over 500,000, I think, of Israelis who've moved into the West Bank on settlements.
I was just trying to. Okay,
This is kind of getting away from the discussion of
I was
why.
just trying to say that I mean, I don't know about it, but I thought that Israel has offered more solutions, more to the to the two-state solution than any Arab leader has tried to accept. Middle
Sure.
Eastern leader.
So what they'll typically say is like, oh, there was the Peel Commission, you had the UN Partition Plan, you had all these different things, the Camp David, you had the Oslo, etc. But a lot of these different plans, they weren't in good faith. Like a lot of them, they're done just to kind of say like, oh, look how peaceful we are. We always try to negotiate and do this, but it's not in good faith. Even like Donald Trump said with respect to Netanyahu, they will publicly say two-state solution, but then they don't actually work towards a real two-state solution. They'll try to derail it at the last moments. For example, when Yitzhak Rabin was working on the Oslo Accords, this is the former prime minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin was working on it. He had people like Netanyahu who was going out and protesting against him and using all this pretty insightful rhetoric to the point where ultimately Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by a right-wing Israeli. And that kind of, went towards derailing some of the peace talks when it came to, the Oslo Accords and all of that stuff.
Well, I don't think you could. I mean, I don't really know what that was said, but I don't know you could attribute his assassination to Netanyahu if he was just protesting him. I mean, he wasn't saying go assassinate this guy.
He was saying things like.
Was he? I mean, if you said go assassinate this guy.
So this was at a time when the rhetoric was really being ratcheted up, and there was, a lot of leaders like agreed and started saying, okay, we're not going to go so hard, and they asked Netanyahu to do it too. He said no. You go ask Yitzhak Rabin's widow, and she holds Netanyahu not ultimately responsible. Obviously, you have to hold the shooter ultimately responsible, but he was encouraging a lot of this rhetoric, and it was pretty messed up. I mean, go look into it for sure.
Okay, I don't think that would be enough to say he called for his.
No, I never said he called for the assassination, but the rhetoric at the time that he was engaging in and the crowds that he was. I mean, these are people. They even had members of Shin Bet, which is like their version of the FBI, who were embedded in some of these groups, and they were even carrying like, things likening Rabin to like Hitler and stuff. It's a kind of crazy situation, but
okay,
we're talking a lot about the history, but we're not talking about like why you support foreign aid for Israel. I mean, this is a first world country that can provide its people with universal health care. We don't have it for our own people here in the United States, and we have trillion-plus-dollar deficits and multi-trillion-dollar debts. We have homeless people, we have crime, we have all these problems that we need to be focusing on here at home. Why should we be supporting a first world country?
Well, first, I think Israel as a state should exist, because I think that's part of it.
Sure, we don't need to give them money for that.
No, well, we've talked a lot about the history and about how both sides. You said both sides don't really look for a two-state solution. But I think Israel, and we talked earlier about the analogy of Americans coming in and taking land from Native Americans to establish our state. But for Israel, like the Jewish state is the native state there. They were there. The Jews were there before.
We're going back to talking about history again.
No,
but
we
again,
are. But I'm
both
talking about
people were there for thousands of years. Yeah.
No, but the Jewish claim on the land would predate.
No.
Yeah.
No. So the Canaanites were there before the Jews were, and the Canaanites, if you look at the genetic testing, they most resemble like the Lebanese population today genetically, and even the Palestinians. So those people, and even some Jews. My point is, the people who are there, like, yeah, all those people, that's fine, historic claim to the land, but they lived together basically for thousands of years. And then one of those groups, most of them who had already dispersed to other countries in Europe and the other Middle Eastern countries, then come back thousands of years later and say, no, this is my land, God gave it to me. That's, I don't know. I don't know of any other situation where you can leave a land for thousands of years and then come back. Even when you look different than the people who've stayed there for thousands of years and say, like, this is all mine now. But again, that's history. I'm trying to talk about the foreign aid question of why America should be sending billions of dollars to this first world country that has universal health care when we can't even afford to take care of our own people.
Yes. So I think America should send aid. Obviously I don't know the whole financial breakdown of like foreign governments and whatnot, but unless you think America should just be like isolationist and not send money to like any government, foreign governments, or like to the, I don't know what they send money to the UN for, or to the UN or other countries, then I think
how come are those countries isolationist because they don't send us money? Is Israel isolationist because they don't send us money even though we're their biggest ally?
No, but I think that America is separate from other countries in a sense that America is basically America is basically like a global empire, you know?
Is that a good thing? Is that something you want to maintain?
I think it's good. I mean, we could go back to like the Cold War or something where America just has this like sphere of influence. I learned that in history class, like the spheres of influence. But I think
during the Cold War, we had a lot of, we were all over the world too. But
no, right? But there was like the USSR. They had like the USSR states, right? But I think having America as like the global power is a good thing. You know, first of all, America.
Yeah, but don't a lot of empires fall because they overextend themselves? Kind of like, the Romans or the British and now seemingly America. Like, do you think over 900 bases all over the world is sustainable to have? And do you think, like, all these countries, like, for example, again, with Israel in particular, this country causes particular problems in the Middle East, and we get a lot of backlash for that. Do you think it's worth American lives to experience, like what benefit, again, I still haven't heard a benefit that we get out of supporting Israel when we get all this backlash and Americans dying on attacks like 9/11, for example.
Well, again, I think that the backlash of terrorist attacks shouldn't be to do what the outcome of that shouldn't be to do what the terrorists want you to do necessarily, you know?
No, but it is an outcome and it should be taken into the calculus. Again, you're not, like, what are the benefits of supporting Israel?
I mean, what's the benefits of supporting, like, any country? It's
Like Turkey?
I guess.
So Turkey is an actual, like, big power in the region. They're the gateway to Europe. They control the Bosphorus, which leads into the Black Sea. It's a very geostrategic region. They have a lot of refugees from other conflicts in the Middle East that they hold against. They're basically like the backstop against Europe. You know, they're a NATO ally, which Israel is not. Yeah, I mean, they have like a way bigger population, like almost 90 million people, whereas Israel has like 10 times less than that. I mean, there's a lot of important reasons for Turkey. I don't see a lot of important, and even then, I don't think we should necessarily send them money. Like, so why should, and we don't even send them any close to the amount of money, especially on a per capita level that we do for Israel. So what's the real reason for Israel? Like, what's the benefit? Especially when they sell our secrets to the Chinese, like they did for the J-10 program. They've attacked us in the past with the USS Liberty attack where they killed American sailors, and they continue to spy on us, whether that was the Jonathan Pollard incident or that was the stingrays that they found outside the White House under Donald Trump's administration. I mean, this doesn't seem like the best ally in the world.
I think that I don't know what all Israel can bring to like benefit like America's interests like directly.
But that should be the calculus. When we decide to give countries money, we should have reasons for that.
But
right?
what
and the amount that we give, there should be reasons behind that, right? So what do you think justifies giving Israel more money, especially per capita, than any country on this earth?
Why do you think? I don't know. Why do you think? What do you think?
That's a good answer. I don't know is a good answer
right now.
I think the reasons we do it right now is because we have a very powerful Israel lobby that influences the United States. And I think we also have a very big Christian population that believes in a very particular version of Christianity that's kind of unique to America, called premillennial dispensationalism, where they believe that the land of Israel has to be in control by the Jews in order to bring about the end times, rapture, basically. And that's like a very modern concept. Most Americans didn't believe this until sometime in the like mid-20th century. It's not a historically biblical concept.
I mean, I don't know what just because I don't know.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. I don't know is a good answer.
Just because I don't know though doesn't mean that's not a reason, because there's
I agree. I mean that I listed out some reasons. I listed out some reasons for why it is, but yeah.
But I just think that Israel. If I look into the Middle East, and I see the different states that are there, I think Israel, as a state, is better than some of the other states, especially Hamas.
Well, Hamas isn't a state; it's a political party in a region like the Gaza Strip. It's not even like part of the West Bank, which is the bigger part of the Palestinian territories. But Yeah, I mean, I don't see how that justifies us giving Israel foreign aid, especially when they directed, money to go to Hamas by bolstering them up in order to prevent a two-state solution, even according to Netanyahu himself and the Mossad chief going over there. And this has been a policy of theirs going back even to like the 1980s. They've been trying to, split up the Palestinian population with by bolstering up different political parties. So, yeah, I don't see the reason. But I appreciate you sitting down. Thanks for coming
you're
by.
welcome.
Awesome.
Yeah, you knew a whole bunch about this stuff. I didn't know.
It's all good.
I mean,
I don't know anything. I'm an idiot.
I just have my sensibilities.
That's
I guess.
it. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
We have the pro-Israel thing up here. I guess you say you want more foreign aid for Israel.
I think I'm status quo. I support the foreign aid to Israel, and I think that's on the basic.
You want to bring the mic closer?
Oh, on the basic fact that America or Israel is a major non-NATO major ally of America under its designation in the State Department, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, if you want to debate as to whether or not they can be an ally, maybe, but all our allies receive support from America, Israel included.
Okay. How much aid did we give to Germany?
How much aid did we give to Germany? I don't have that number off the top of my head.
But we give aid to Germany?
Military support, sure.
Military support, like, what do you mean?
We provided them, I mean, since their inception, we were the initial supporters of the Bundeswehr when the German Republic was founded in.
But I mean today.
Today?
Yeah.
We were in a nuclear sharing program with Germany that we allow them to, them along with other NATO nations, that we station nukes in their bases and their fighter pilots in the case of.
So us having like bases in other countries, that's not the same thing.
But it's weapon sharing. I mean, it's $billion weapon sharing.
It's not the same thing as what we do with Israel, though, like giving them like money.
That's true.
Yeah. So you're saying there, like, what's an example of Israel being like did they aid us like militarily?
They're a wager
Afghanistan?
chip within the region.
They're a what?
A wager chip that
Well,
within
what do you mean?
the region. I mean, previously, before Jordan and Egypt and the Camp David Accords in 78, 79, somewhere around there, we had no allies in the region besides Israel. The region was staunchly anti-American because we supported the founding of Israel. The Arab states had a lot of vitriol against us.
Okay. So that seems like we're actually creating a circumstance by which we could have less allies and friends, especially amongst countries that are like resource rich, that have oil and all that stuff, all to support Israel, which doesn't seem to have worked out so well for us when they attacked us in '67 with the USS Liberty attack.
Which could have easily been, I mean, the official conclusion was it was an accident.
You believe that?
I think it's completely possible that in the midst of war that the Egyptians had refitted Liberty ships too. The USS Liberty was a Liberty ship that was converted into a spy craft, and that we made thousands upon thousands of Liberty ships, and we sold them to whoever would buy them. And the Egyptians had Liberty ships too. They did strafes. It could have been an accident. It could have been purposeful.
I mean, it had very clear markings on the ship, and as well as an American flag on the ship. It was identified. Even in the audio recordings, you can hear them say, on the Israeli side, it's an American ship. It's American. So they knew it was an American ship. And even subsequent releases and declassified documents have gone against the original Israeli narrative, like, oh, there was never a flag on the ship, when that's very clear that there was. And virtually all the survivors of the USS Liberty, will tell you that it was an intentional attack.
There's been false flag attacks on Americans by other allies.
So you're basically acknowledging that was a false flag attack.
It could have been very well been a false flag
What's
attack.
an example of another one that comes to mind that you're thinking of?
Off the top of my head,
I can think of another one that Israel did, the Lavon affair. That was another false flag attack that they did, that they didn't even really admit to until I think the mid-2000s or something, but that was in the 1950s. and they were bombing American and British targets in Egypt in order to try to get them into a war with the Arabs. Is that something that an ally would do? Is that beneficial to the United States?
Could you repeat that?
The Levant affair, where they like bombed American and British targets in Egypt in order to blame it on the Arabs and get America involved in a war with the Arabs. Is that beneficial to the United States?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, that's what this supposed ally has done historically. And some people think the Liberty attack was something to that effect as well. So what's the benefit, do you think, that we get out of... Well, you can address those incidents first if you want, but and because you said you can't think of another false flag attack by another nation or whatever on us, but like answer those, and then answer what's the benefit in us supporting Israel.
Well, I think at this point, Israel is a state that exists. I mean, they very likely have nuclear weapons, and it's very unlikely for them to be going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, they have nuclear weapons. So, while maybe Israel being formed in 48 was not to the benefit of future American relations, that by the time they existed, and as of now, they exist. And even if we don't support them, then as we've seen with, them willing to play both sides, they've sold out to China before. That
they sold out to China while we're allied with them.
Yes.
So they sold our secrets to the Chinese.
Yes.
Like the J-10 program.
Yes.
So is that an ally? is that what an ally does?
Yes.
An ally sells our secrets to the Chinese.
Turkey's done terrible things too. They've decided to opt out of F-35 programs, and we've had allies that have...
Opting out of F-35 programs is not the same thing as selling our secrets to the Chinese like the Israelis have.
Okay.
Yeah. So how is that a good ally that we should be supporting more than any country on Earth, especially on a per capita basis?
We don't support them in every single one of their wars. It's not like we've been involved. We've been involved with material aid and not direct military aid. It's
generally first of all, again, like I'm talking just even straight up money. Like we give them...
Yeah, we give them billions of dollars of aid.
Yeah, more per capita than any other country, like
directly.
Ever.
None of our troops haven't been involved in the 48 war and the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War.
Our troops were killed in the 6-Day War by Israel.
But, in the USS Liberty, but we weren't involved in combat operations.
But we also get into wars basically on behalf of Israel, like the Iraq War and things like that.
Which Iraq War? Iraq 1 or Iraq 2?
Arguably both, to be honest. Was basically for the interests of Israel. I understand the Kuwait excuse was like there, but no one would really give that much of a crap if it wasn't like Iraq was
Kuwait had oil. We want more oil-friendly countries.
Sure, but I mean also like the Israelis were very panicked about Saddam and have wanted to get rid of him for the longest period of time because they viewed him as one of the biggest threats in the region. So I think that's really the reason why we went to war against Iraq, and I think the WMD thing was an excuse.
WMD thing was an excuse.
Yeah. So.
But it was faulty intelligence perpetrated by the Italians. It wasn't.
It was
the Yellow Cake affair that the Italian intelligence agency at the time said that Saddam had tried to purchase Yellow Cake and
there was aluminum tubes. There was a lot of things with the Office of Special Plans. Yeah, it wasn't just Italian intelligence, but I think we get into wars on Israel's behalf, like Syria, even the strike on Soleimani, which, by the way, Trump said himself that Israel was supposed to be like a strike thing, that they were supposed to do it together, and then last minute the Israelis basically pulled out, and that really pissed Trump off, even though they decided to go ahead with it. So things like that.
I would agree. Israel supports its own interests above America.
Yeah.
But I mean, are all countries not supporting their own interests
above America? I think they should, but I think the problem with America is we often put Israel first above America. I mean, look at what Nikki Haley, who's a contender for the presidential race, is saying. Israel doesn't need America. America needs Israel. I can't conceive of any possible reason why we would need Israel.
Because without that, we have no leverage in the region. It gives us leverage.
How?
In
We
the
have
region.
military power. What's the if anything, this works as leverage, like almost against us with Israel. Like, we get terrorist attacks as a result of our support for Israel. That was cited as one of the main reasons by Osama bin Laden for the 9/11 attacks. So
Osama bin Laden attacked America because he saw America as weak. That every time, as seen in the USS Cole bombing, as seen on the attacks of American troops in Saudi Arabia after the Gulf War, every single time American troops were attacked, Bill Clinton or whoever was president at the time pulled out. They kept on pulling out of countries just because, or in the Lebanon when the U.S. Marines were killed in their barracks during a bombing, they immediately after U.S. Marines were pulled out. And so Osama bin Laden says, well, if I just strike them where in their own home, then they're going to pull out of the Middle East for good. Didn't work like that, but that was his
no, I think I
rationale.
thought the reasoning was wasn't their whole point is to like get America involved in a war like in Afghanistan and other places, which historically empires fall in Afghanistan, and just do
I mean,
and it's also to punish again.
Yeah.
He said it himself. Like, this was his reasoning. Was one of the reasons was our support for Israel, the state of Israel. So that was stated by him. Like, we don't even. Have
It
to
definitely.
guess.
Well, I think that was more influenced by, forget his name, Zawahiri.
Zawahiri.
Yeah.
Okay.
That after Egypt's humiliation and the Yom Kippur War, that Zawahiri was Egyptian, and he was more influenced by the. But I mean, I think we're getting off track of Israel being I think.
Sure. So again, if they sell our if they sell our information to the Chinese, they spy on the president like Donald Trump with stingrays, as reported by Politico. If they have spies like Jonathan Pollard, who are in the United States, which they lie to us first, saying, "Oh no, he wasn't. Oh, we didn't pay him or anything. Oh, actually, we did pay him." And then they actually lobby for him to be released. He comes to Israel. The guy's a national hero, even though he's a traitor to America. They do the USS Liberty bombing, the Lavon affair, lots of like treacherous acts, false flags designed to get us into wars. Why is this a good ally that we should send more money per capita than any country in the world?
I think you're debating as to whether or not they are an ally is the fact, and whether or not they are a good ally or not, that can be debated. They can, if they want to be removed from being an ally, sure, whatever. But they are an ally, and thus they should receive foreign aid.
Well, why more than every other? First of all, I don't think we give money to all of our allies, and secondly, why should they get more than every other country? They're a first world country. Their people can afford like universal health care. We can't even afford that for our own people.
Well,
we have
we pay
homelessness.
more per capita on health care than other countries. I mean, that's kind of a.
Yeah, we're also unhealthier as well. But I'm just saying, isn't our priority, like you said, every nation should take care of their own first.
Yeah.
That should be their priority. We don't even do that for ourselves. Why are we sending money abroad when we have trillion-dollar deficits, multi-trillion-dollar debts, can't take care of our own people, we're dying, crime, homelessness? Why are we sending money to this first world country?
Well, I think that
often
also has
stabs
to
us
do
in
with,
the back.
does with lobbying. I think they lobby second, maybe only to China.
I
yeah.
definitely agree that
$200
Israel
million in lobbying or something.
You said 200 billion?
200 million.
Yeah. So
And
the Israel lobby is insanely powerful. I agree. That's the reason. You could say that's the reason why we do it. But I'm asking, why should we? That's really my question. When we have all these problems, why should we?
Well, I mean, if you're going back to American problems, that we should be funding American problems first. That we, as I said, we spend more per capita on healthcare than any other country, but that's a fault of insurance. Our insurance scheme.
It's also a fault of us being like one of the most obese countries in the world. We have very unhealthy lifestyles here in the United States.
But we would be able to afford that if it wasn't for our insurance schemes acting as middlemen, taking away massive profits in their lobbying.
Sure, we could go to like a Medicare for all or like a universal health care
Just strip
system.
away insurance.
Sure, you could do that. I'm saying if you want to do that, whatever, But why are we sending that money to Israel when we could be doing stuff like that for the American people?
Because it'd be a drop in the water. There's lots of complaints about like American percentage of that we spent. If we spent less on the military, we'd be able to afford healthcare. We spend something like 25% of our taxes, our GDP, or 25% of our taxes on healthcare. We spend 26% on Social Security, and then we spend like 12% on military. And our healthcare represents a lot, but that's not the problem. We're talking about Israel, and they are an ally, and they are in a precarious position. As we saw October 27th, they still got their asses handed to them by Hamas, and it was a complete intelligent failure.
October 7th, not 27th.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
October 7th. It was a complete intelligence failure on their behalf.
You think so?
Yes.
You think that was an intelligence failure? You don't think you think that was all like, oh, it was just totally by surprise, we had no inklings of anything, no one tried to tell us anything, it was just, even though they were allegedly training for this for 1 to 2 years, they had no inkling of anything?
Not even some of the Hamas commanders even knew about it.
You think Iran knew about it?
I think it's possible Iran knew about it.
Even though so far their intelligence is saying they had no involvement or anything like that, but presumably if they did have involvement, surely the Israelis would know about it, and they didn't know, like they didn't see people training with paragliders off the coast, coast
yeah,
of.
Those were videos and they were posted online.
So how do they see all these paragliders training off the coast for some reason, and they have no clue of anything?
Because there's an intelligence failure. They failed. They messed up.
Yeah. Okay.
I think our disagreement is based off of one of whether or not they're a good ally or not, and
well, not just that, but again, we send them more than any other country, especially per capita, ever, and they're a rich country, relatively
I
speaking.
agree. We do not need to be spending as much money as we do on foreign aid to Israel. Those are
cool,
but foreign aid to Israel, if we sent them $1 billion or whatever. And sure, whatever.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.